Welcome to another episode of Ook Builders Workshop. My name is Doug Long, and I'll be the host for today's program. The Ook Builders Workshop is produced in cooperation with the Ukulele Guild of Hawaii. Joining me today is a return guest, Mike Chock. How you doing, Mike?
Hello, Doug. I'm glad to be back.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
So we kind of split up our shows, between custom builders and the factory builders. So some of our shows, it's a lot of talk about theory and stuff like that, and not so much physical demonstration. And so the nice thing about today's show is, it really is going to be a demonstration that'll be valuable to Ook builders. Mike is going to be demonstrating veneers.
Yes, rope binding. Yeah.
Rope binding veneers. The fabrication of rope binding veneers. So it'll be a interesting show for the builders. So Mike, what got you started in
rope binding?
In rope binding itself, yeah.
Well, I guess a signature for most custom builders is that you want to decorate the perimeters of the ukulele. For two things: for aesthetics, number one, and the second, as a protective thing. If you drop it, you'll dent the binding versus the ukulele itself. And the binding is the material that goes around the perimeter of the ukulele. Sometimes you'll see in the high-end ukuleles they're abalone. Well, the abalone is on the surface edge of the ukulele perimeter, but it's really not on the edge, and on the edge itself is what we call the purfling. So the binding. The purfling is the decorative stuff on top. So what got me into binding is that every ukulele you do, you got to figure out a binding of some sort. And pretty soon you go through, you start off with plastic, it's easy to do. Then you graduate to woods, and then various types of woods. And then there's always a color schematic and choice. So I guess I'm a little lazy, so I came upon the idea that old-time ukuleles were rope bound. And they were done by building a series of veneers and wood pieces in such a way that you could cut it and create a diagonal looking binding on the edge or a vertical looking binding. And for me, doing that, it solved a lot of problems. And that was the ukulele. I just have to rope bind it, and I know it's mine.
Yeah. Both of these are rope binding, right?
Yeah. So let me show you. Yeah. This one here is what we call vertical rope binding. In other words, as you look at from the sides of the ukulele itself.
Hold it here.
Yeah, from the sides, you'll see that the lines are vertical, up and down. Yet, if you view it from the top, it'll be diagonal. So this is one way. So this is just, for me, this is just called vertical rope binding. Let me just stick this on the side. We don't need this anymore. Now, this particular ukulele is the opposite, which means the rope binding now is diagonal on the viewing surface edge, yet when you flip it over in front, you'll see that it would be vertical. So it's opposite. Mm-hmm. So you have two different types of quality of rope. I have the sample right here, and this is an individual piece of regular, this would be vertical, which would be this one. And then you see it'll just match up, right? Vertical and then diagonal on the top, okay? Whereas this piece would be this one, which would mean diagonal, and then viewed from the top, vertical. Of course, now you can get a little bit crazy, and when you go to this side, you can have the diagonal rope binding going one direction, then halfway around the ook, switch it so it's in a opposite direction, kind of like a reverse chevron, and that would look like.
Well, this one is continuous.
Yeah, this is continuous in one direction.
So in the middle it could book
yeah,
match.
so I could have cut it like this, you see, make 2 45 cuts like this, and then have it go different directions, yeah? One to the left, one to the right. And you'll find the more you work with rope binding, you can kind of play. So the reason I brought these ukuleles was that this makeshift rosette now is in reality a piece of horizontal or vertical rope binding, veneered on two sides, back side and the front side, and then inlaid in this and bent around into a channel that's an oval, and you get this look, yeah. Or you could take a diagonal rope and add another veneer to the diagonal end here, and you come out with what this headstock looks like, and it would be like that, see? I don't know if you can see that with the camera.
Yep.
But in other words, the more you play with the rope binding, you'll find that you can come up with some different, not only designs, but different ways to use it into your ukulele construction. I guess.
Well, you could also do you could do a double on your inlay here too, and do a herringbone.
Correct.
In your.
Yeah, and that's really nice.
Rosette.
Yeah, so the herringbone actually is actually, and I can show you that, it would be actually if you had a left and a right, it's now a chevron, you know? Yeah. If you look at it, it's just a little chevron. If you put a veneer in the middle, then you would have it a contrasting color. The veneer can be straight wood veneer, standard wood veneer, that it looks like this, or it could use a colored veneer that would look like this, and this inserted in between, you know, would give you a different color, and that's the kind of fun part of
and you can buy some herringbone stuff, but it's really limited. I mean, you know, you're kind of limited to.
The stuff is black and white.
Black and white, yeah.
Yeah, black
and that's
and white.
it. So I mean, if you want to do anything different, you got to make your own.
This, if you make your own, what you'll find is it's pretty fastidious. I mean, you've got to cut true and dimension really well. If you don't, it goes out of kilter pretty easily.
Yeah.
But you'll find that once you make a log, you can make so many pieces that you never have to make binding for at least 10 ukuleles every time, and that's what's easy for me now.
Yeah.
With the backing, which will end up looking like the purfling, it creates I guess a reinforcement and a visual, you know, dimension. So when you're bending, it won't break apart really easily, and it's pretty easy to bend with a standard heat blanket.
Yeah.
You know, so, and that's what got me into making rope binding, mostly because once you do the process, I don't have to do it again, and the next 10 or 15 ukuleles, I don't have to think about, oh, what am I going to do with the binding? I just need to go, do I make it diagonal this way, or this way, or this way, or do I make it vertical? And that's what I do now.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so today's topic would be, how do I get there? And I think I'll try and show you from point A to point Z, the process of what I do. Bear in mind that as you start doing it, you'll probably think of different things, and then you can improvise and change it and then come up with a variation that probably I don't even have,
Yep.
And then that's the beauty of just making it. But in any case, I just have a little list here, and your standard things as materials is first and foremost, and this takes a little bit of time, is you have to have contrasting woods, and they have to be dimension, meaning the woods have to be the same thickness so that when they're glued together, they'll read the same. So the thickness of this bundle is really important. And when you're doing this, this does take time and a lot of wood. So bear in mind you will use a lot of material, because this is a lot of material. Okay.
Now, when you're doing your rope binding, do you try and select woods that are approximately the same density, or it doesn't matter or not?
I don't care about density too much, because they're so small in relationship when they're glued together that they'll bend anyway. But unfortunately, we don't use a lot of maple, which is the nicest white, And a demonstration, we're cutting walnut and bobinga, so this is what we're using. But normally, I like more dark and white, so you have a different contrast, yeah. So again, that's the first material you have to have. Second is you need some sort of a wax paper or parchment paper. I use parchment paper. I took it from my wife's kitchen. Parchment paper, I find out, is really nice because, number one, it retains heat. It doesn't burn. So the glue doesn't stick to it. But the second use that I found very interesting is that if you strip the parchment paper, and if you're bending sides in a heat blanket, if you wrap it in parchment paper and put the heat blanket on top, spray it with water, wrap it with parchment paper, put the heat blanket on top, and actually go ahead and bend it, you won't get any staining from the wetness to the color of the wood, So it comes out really nice, and it works better than parchment paper. The glue just does not stick, so it just
Better than
comes
wax
off.
paper.
Better than wax paper, rather. It works really good. Third, the standard tight bond glue.
Now, I noticed you have the
Franklin.
standard tight bond glue, and they have a couple different grades. They got the tight
They
bond
do.
3 or something, which is more moisture resistant.
They have the Tight Bond 2, which is waterproof, and
Yeah.
Tight Bond 3, which is the urethane, which is even stronger. I don't know if this would be any weaker or not. What I do know is that the Tight Bond original will work.
So you've used it successfully.
I've used it
Yeah.
a lot.
Right.
But I'm not opposed to 2 or 3
Yeah.
because they should be fine, And then the last thing, material-wise, is simply veneers. And the veneers you can get at Woodcraft in different colors, which is cool. Greens, reds, yellows, or standard. This is Koa veneers you can get at Pac American Lumber.
Yeah.
Or, they're pretty standard for cabinet people, So that's the materials you need. For tools, we'll go through like the hand stuff first, but mostly you need a bunch of clamps. A Jorgensen clamp is fine, a lever clamp like this, or a C-clamp, and that's fine. And all this would be is so that we set up some kind of system to clamp the bundles together when you're
Right.
gluing them. I mean, that's all the clamps are for. Second, you need a pair of scissors. Any scissors will do.
Yeah.
Third, you kind of need. I use a carpenter's square because so you can get your 45s. You can draw different 45s or square things. You kind of want that. You want a straight edge. Any ruler would be fine. I use a mat knife always. The mat knife will help me cut the veneers. And then I use glue spreaders.
Manufactured by Formica.
Manufactured by Formica Samples, or Wilson Art in this case. Or you can use old credit cards,
Yep.
new ones if you want, I guess, I don't know. But just to help spread the glue. under me and in front of me is my gluing surface. So I use this is a Marukai advertisement newspaper, but that's what comes to my shop. And I just want that as I'm gluing so I don't get my work table too dirty.
Yeah.
You need a sander. Now, I'm blessed with a big belt stroke sander. If you happen to have a Performax, the drum sander, they'll work really well.
Yeah.
If not, you're back to the elbow grease and a sanding block, and it'll work. You just have to be aggressive, but it will work.
But how would you gauge your thickness and stuff?
What I do is, for thicknesses, I have aluminum shim stocks, or actually flat bars of aluminum I buy at City Mill, and I'll put whatever I want to be thicknessed between two runners of aluminum, say it was like that.
Yeah.
Then I just run my sander straight across, or I run my palm sander on it, or I run a belt sander on it. You won't cut the metal. You'll cut the wood before you hit the metal, so you can do that too. Or if you're real anal, and I guess we all are, you can put metal on both sides, and I put a little felt tip pen and I paint the metal's edge black, so that when I'm sanding, if the black disappears, I'm touching the metal and I want to go any deeper, I'll stop. You know, so actually I use some sort of visual guide whenever I'm sanding. You know, if I'm sanding this down, I'll put a big red mark here or a big pencil mark on both ends. When I run it through the sander, when I can't see the red, then I'm fine. Because when you're automatic now and you have a nice machine, you feed them, you know, you can just keep going until you got nothing, you know. But this way, you only take off what you want to take off. Okay, so the hard tools that most people won't have, but some people will, and that's a chop saw or electric miter saw. That'll help making 45s, because you will cut the block into 45s. Or you can use a miter box with a good back saw. You know, the other thing that I use, and I use it for one or two operations, is this little mini saw to my left over here. And this mini saw actually has a really tiny slotting blade. It's only 3 inches in diameter. It's right over here. And the kerf of the blade is really, really thin. So I can cut material, you know, prepared material with less waste.
Yeah.
And that's what you really want to do, get a minimum waste as possible. So other than that, these are just cauls that you can glue. If you put wax paper on the wooden box and you slip your glued pieces in, you could get a caul, make any caul, to use to smash it straight or to smash it down to keep this square when you're gluing up. So you want your log to get, when you finish your log, you want the log itself really straight, you know, just dimensioned so that it's easier for you on the following step. Okay, so in any case, that's the materials and that's the equipment. The procedure is relatively simple, and that is, you know, once you lay out your woods, and these are the woods, I'm laying out, in this case, bobinga, walnut, alternating, and my job is just to glue this up and fabricate it together. When I glue, I take my Marukai paper and I stack it how I want it to glue. So this is a sample thing, and we'll do a real quick sample one. And so this is my first piece. That's going to be on the bottom. I never use the stop on this. I just tape up my glue. So
I chew it off with my teeth.
I do too, and my dentist doesn't appreciate that. but it's so cool to do, you know. Okay, so.
It tastes horrible. But
Tastes horrible. So fast one like that is just one line going across. I'll take the card and hold it flat like this. And you see, I can just, it's coated evenly. That's all you need. Because I coat two sides, yeah. I always, when I'm doing veneers, it's better to err on the surplus than not enough glue. Okay, so I'll wipe it off like this. This is glued, and the second surface is glued. So I'll just stack it on there like that.
Yeah, if you don't put enough, it falls apart.
Yeah, and you don't want that because
Yeah,
it'll be under heat.
If you put too much,
Correct.
it squeezes out.
Right. So, and you can always squeeze out because we're clamping the bejesus out of these things.
Well, again, we're both from construction industry, so if you're making decisions, you always go the safe side.
Correct.
The safe decision.
And I think that's really helped me is like, your background and my background, Doug, is construction. And, as a house builder, the thing has to last.
Yeah.
So you always worry about construction, and you want to make the thing just do a good job because you're doing it anyway. And if you do it on both sides like this, it's just a fail-safe so that if you didn't do a good job on the first one, the second piece will glue it down. But and if you did a good job on both of them, then you're really home free. But normally, a little glue job like this of as many layers as you pick in the bundle, it will take a good at least 15 minutes. So you have to move because tight bond sets in 25 minutes. So if you don't,
so your early stuff will have bad glue on it.
Yeah, it'll really just it won't clamp
It won't
fast.
clamp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you're
especially
on.
because you're putting it on relatively thin.
Yeah.
And it's it's also soaking into the material.
Correct. So there it is. I'm pretty much okay.
So that kind of limits the size of your bundle then, because I was thinking, the thicker the bundle, the better. But
No, because actuality, the thicker the bundle, the bigger the machine you need to start slicing it up.
Yep.
Yeah. So in this case,
do you want this one or that one?
this one's fine. Yeah. Okay. So all this is a vertical and a horizontal, so that you can, with parchment paper on the bottom.
And just back.
Yes. So that you can go ahead and stick it in. So, and then you would put a clamp like this, a caul like this, and then clamp it together, yeah? Yep. So what it would really look like, this was just a sample to show you the glue up, but it would really look like if this was your piece, your bundle rather, let's use this one. You would put this inside here. You would put a piece like this to squeeze it together, and you would also put another, I do because I'm pretty anal, I put another piece on top like this to hold it down because I don't want it to be like this.
Now how many clamps would you use in a...
like this, I would probably use 8 clamps.
So 4 on each?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, so I'm gluing the top down so that the cards, stay flat.
Yeah.
And then I'm gluing the sides together.
Okay.
So it'll take I leave it an hour or so, and then this will peel right off. And then what you've really created is the first step in life for rope binding is you've created what we call the basic log. And the basic log really is that glued together.
Glued together. Yeah.
So it'll look like this. Yeah. And this will be just a straight log. Mm-hmm. Now, the second step would be now to 45 the logs. Yeah, see it like this? Because now this is how I was taught in an internet article I looked at years ago. And what they did was they took a piece like this, they 45 both ends, and then they measured the distance, divided it to equal pieces. So, and what they did was they got a square, and then they went ahead and 45'd it, equally, like that, a line across like that, and cut it into sections, yeah? So if this was this like this, let's go upside down like this, here you go. If the camera can pick it up, that's the 45-degree sections. Mm-hmm. See, so 45, 45, 45. I would cut these sections on the chop saw or in a miter box, and then I would pick these you'll come out with 3 sections, 1, 2, 3, and then you would turn them side by side. I don't know if I have a sample, probably not.
I don't think so.
Oh, well, you could do it like this, side by side, see? And then they'll add up, side by side like this and get longer. And what you'll end up is with the log now looking like this.
Can you clamp more than about 1 section at a time, though? Because you can't clamp because of the offset.
You'll find that if you clamp too much,
Yeah.
it'll move too much.
Yeah.
So this is this my angle clamping jig. This we don't need anymore. Strong glue. Okay,
That's the reason to have the paper down.
Yeah, that's the reason for the paper. Okay, so this has a 45-degree block here, so that when I stick this in, it has something to smash against. That I can kind of glue it together.
I wanted to back up here. People might want to take a shortcut and do when they're stacking these, do the angle too. But you have to waste that little triangle because you can't. Otherwise, you can't clamp it.
So in actuality, this log you see me when I glued up. Actually, I really don't do it this way. What I do is I glue it in an angle.
You do.
Yeah. I just glue it as an approximate.
But
angle.
how do you get? How can these out here get clamped tight?
Well, because the caul is long enough
Yeah.
to bypass like this.
Yeah.
And it'll stay
All right.
tight. It just stays tight.
All right.
It really doesn't move.
So you do offset it some. But you don't
Yeah.
offset it a full 45 then.
No.
Yeah.
Kind of like this, and I just clamp it.
All
But
right.
you see how it will kind of hold in here.
Okay.
So it's just really not a problem. Okay, so anyway, again, once that's 45, and you glue the 45 sections together, this is really your log. So this is your side.
Yeah. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces. Probably.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces. And in actuality, if you look at it real closely, I only get 3 pieces out of this. See, here's a line. Yeah.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. So in actuality, this is this color. There's another one. No. So there's actually 2 pieces, 2 logs.
2 logs
alternated
into this big log.
Yeah. So they're not the same, in other
Yep.
words. But because they're repeated, when your pattern will repeat, so it makes no difference. And then if you wanted to chuck the whole thing and just get a whole bunch random, stick them together, what's the difference? You can have now random colors, which it will work. So basic log. All you're doing now is cutting to your bandsaw the thickness of what you're looking for.
Ending up with these strips.
Well, you end up with this strip now, see? So you can kind of see it like this. I don't know if the camera can pick it up.
Oh, okay.
But, I'm sorry. There's a left and a right, see, and every one. There, see it? So,
Okay.
yeah. So that's your angle. Now, if you cut it, with a bandsaw, and you can cut a whole bunch of these, boom,
Yeah.
boom, 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 you'll get this piece. And all you need to do now is you have to envision this would be a vertical lining. This would be a vertical binding with diagonal on top.
Yeah.
So how do we get there? We finally get a veneer piece like this. We glue it to the back like this. And again, on a flat piece of board, clamping surface, and a bunch of
Now the veneer
spring
is
clamps.
kind of optional though.
It's optional, but the veneer is essential optional. Because what it does 2 things. One, it gives yourself what they call a purfling on the inside of the ukulele.
Right.
And it holds each individual piece one more time. It's like a web reinforcing.
But if you wanted to not have that, you could put the veneer on the outside then and just sand it off. If you wanted only the rope binding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Why?
Why? Yeah. So this is nice like this because it helps hold everything together. Second, it's a good way to extend. Yeah. Remember now, we got short little pieces, so you can always make this longer. You just have to match, ends. Glue them together, and they get longer. They get this long. Yeah. How I glue mine together? Up, glue, glue. I put masking tape across, 2 little half-inch long masking tapes. I pull it, I turn it over, I pull it, I glue it in between. That's all.
Yeah.
Nothing more.
But,
Okay?
and that's before your veneer.
That's before my veneer.
So when you do your veneer, you would veneer over that, for sure,
yeah,
veneer over
and then
that.
it'd be super strong.
over
Okay,
that
so here it is. If I veneered this now, and then I clean up my veneer with a sanding block, just sand it, it goes really quickly. Flush with a sanding block. With your matte knife, you cut off the extra.
Yep.
Regular old standard matte knife, you just cut off the extra. Sanding block, sand, and now I adjust my mini saw to whatever thickness I want,
That'd be your height.
and that would be the height.
The height. that
This is
you're
already my
binding.
thickness.
The thickness you're binding, this would be the height.
Right. So now I'll have a whole boatload of binding that's vertical. Yeah. But now, I mean, to take it now one step further, because you made it nice and thin, you can take the two strips that you have, and again, if you go back to back and you make a chevron, and you put the veneer in between, now you have a chevron. Yeah. And that's a pretty cool looking, you know, binding. You know, that'd be like that. Or we can do it this way, Dougie, and accent it even more. Forget this guy,
Oh, thicker.
and put in a blue. You
Yeah.
know. Yeah. See, now this is a real cool looking rosette, headstock, backstrip veneer
Backstrip.
between matching sides and backs, you know. So multiple uses. If you don't like it, it's too fat, sand both
Sand.
sides so you get it a little thinner. But again, that's the added plus. So this particular way was the first way I was taught on how to make this rope binding. So again, block, normal glued up block, cut it into 45s, glue the 45s together, and then to whatever thickness you want, put on your veneers, and then strip it to width. And then you'll get a vertical rope binding like this. See, so this is just stripped.
Yep.
And there you go, then you can bend that. Now, I was playing with this piece, and what I discovered was that there's another way to do it. And this other way is, as you get your standard block again, you know, remember now this is going to be 45 a little bit, yeah? All you have to do, and in this case I figured it out to about 3/16 is your ultimate thickness. You can cut it a quarter, run it through your bandsaw, and then thickness it to 3/16. But it'll come out like this now, see it? It's just same thing. It's the verticals, yeah?
Oh,
And now, instead of cutting it into angles, we're just cutting it to 3/16 strips. So I get a bunch of strips like this, you know, just like this. And that's all it is. You know, you can make a whole bunch of them. I don't know how many would fit in there. And now we're doing it a different way. And it's like you take your strips. Oh, let me get it like this. And you 45 it, but they're individual strips, and you'll come out with 1, 2, 3 pieces, and then you can turn the pieces and glue them together like that. Yeah, pretend they're individual pieces.
maybe a
you know.
little bit harder gluing this way, though, huh?
Actually, not really, because you can tape them,
Yeah.
and that's what I do. So pretend this was in here like this, and there was X amount of pieces. Actually, let me show you the piece.
This is one of my original songs. Called it, named it after my hometown, Waipahu.
Okay.
This is a glue up of the piece. And let me take out all these spring clamps. You know. So we're doing this in an hour segment, but naturally this process takes
more than an hour. If
Yeah.
it was done an hour, I'd make a lot of them.
a few days, you know. But in actuality, you can see this now is that, and this will help because they're different colors, yeah. But you see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces, which is actually 2 of these.
Yeah.
You know? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they're glued together.
All right.
And they were glued in this little thing here.
Yeah.
Okay. So now what I've
Oh,
done
this
is
has your veneer on it
yeah,
already.
I've only put it on one side.
Yeah.
Okay, so I put a standard veneer, which is it's just a veneer piece like this. It's as wrinkly as this. This is what I actually used on this side.
Yeah.
And I put it in here. I put a board underneath that's flat, and I put another board. Well, I put parchment paper over,
Yeah.
and another board, and then I clamp
Clamp that.
all over it. I mean, a lot of clamps,
Yeah.
every inch. Yeah, and I mean, you really want. Do not forget the parchment paper. When you are gluing veneers to a thing like this,
Yeah.
the veneer is so thin that it doesn't seem to be, you can't see through it, but it's really thin. When you do this and you actually squeeze a bejesus out of it with a caul, the glue will permeate through it and come out
Yeah.
and actually stick to your caul. I mean big time. And if you're trying to scrape it off, you'll pull out hairs, you know.
Yeah.
So you got to have that parchment paper so when you separate it, it'll come out clean like this. Yeah. Okay, so again, if this was the piece, I would adjust my mini saw to whatever thickness I was looking for. And this is height again now, yeah?
Yeah, because this is the thickness already.
Right.
Or the width. So next year
And this will
cut
be the
for
height. So you would cut it like this and hopefully end up with a piece kind of like this, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, there's your diagonal. This is the opposite
Yeah.
side, so it's a bad example. Let's see. It'll drive you crazy because there's always lefts and rights to this thing, you know, so you got to really pay attention. I don't know. Where's the other? Okay, there's another sample in here somewhere, but it'll be the opposite side.
No need.
No need. But you understand what I'm saying. Okay, now this is the tricky part now. Okay, so again, this is, you know, you're thinking, damn, this guy, he's making it really thick, you know. I mean, the purfling is never this thick. Well, actually, why we cut it to a little less than 3/16, this thickness, is because I want to veneer this on both sides. You see, actually, I want to take this piece and I want to sandwich it with a veneer like this.
Yeah.
Okay, so now when it's sandwiched like this, I can now dress it up. It'd be just like the back. You can't see it anymore, you know, look like a veneered piece. I would strip it to the height I want. So say 3/16 or a 1/4 inch or whatever to get this height. I would just strip it. And now the strip will actually look like, the strip should look like this. It should look like, this. It would be just a log with two sides veneered.
Right. Yeah. So it'd be this.
Just like that, yeah. And then what I would do then is find a dead middle of this piece, which is this piece,
Yeah.
you know, and rip it. And that's what I use the mini saw for. And as I rip
So
it,
anytime you can make something bigger and split it in half, it's a whole lot easier than making two small ones.
make two small ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. So once you split this, it'll just come apart like this, and then you will have a mirror image
Yeah.
like this, which means you have a left and you have a right, which is what I'm looking for.
Oh.
Because some of my ukuleles, like I say, I like to make it like, well,
Split it at the.
at the ukulele.
The center line,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then you'll have this little triangle, you know, like this.
Well, also if you're using it for like a back.
Yeah, or a back strip.
A back strip or
whatever.
anything, it comes in handy.
Yeah, because it's really fun now.
Because then you're, if you split it like that, it's the same as book matching. So if you have light and dark pieces of wood, you know, variation, those the book match pieces are going to have that same variation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're perfect. You
Yeah.
know, they'll be perfect in any way you turn it. I mean, it'll be perfect.
Yeah.
So you'll find that this little piece, I mean, it took a bit of time, but say you cut up this piece here, you'd probably get to probably about 8 strips, you know, taking in consideration, probably 9 because the mini saw is such a small slotting blade. But you have 9 of them cut in half, that's 18.
Yeah.
That's good enough for 4 ukuleles,
Yeah.
4.5 ukuleles, without even thinking about
But
it.
still, I mean, if you do something like this, you want to make.
You want to make a boatload.
You want to make a bunch.
But remember now, if this is 4 ukuleles,
Yeah.
then this cut up into all these funny pieces,
Yeah.
you know, they start adding up, you know, they start, you know, you get quite a bit of, you know, ukuleles made, you know, you're just getting a whole bunch.
Yeah.
So again, once you do it, you'll get way more than you think,
Yeah.
you know, but you don't want to do it a hell of a lot of times. It's really painstaking.
Yeah.
But my recommendation would be, if you're milling everything and you're getting these logs glued up, like I like to glue up like maybe 4 or 5 logs together, because now, and I did this side, which is nice and smooth. Yeah, I ran it through a stroke sander,
Yeah.
so it's perfect. The bottom side is I didn't do it. Yeah, I mean, because I just wanted to show you. This is what, when you glue up nice, and this is really nicely glued, it'll still look like this, really
Yeah.
rough, and you can run that through the sander. So if you have all your logs pretty much the same in thicknesses and dimensions like this, I can set my sander at one height and then run them all one time,
Yeah.
you know, without, you know, changing.
And if you're making logs, I mean, if you want any variation in your logs, you might as well do them.
Yeah.
You know, make a couple logs with these woods and a couple logs with
Yes.
these woods. So
Yeah.
you just do the variations.
The only problem you're going to have is oh, I should have made one more, then it'll equal out. I mean, you got to do your math, so you got to figure out how long and whatever.
Yeah.
The other thing you'll find that, well, what if they're all short pieces? Well, you'll find that it's really not a big deal. You can always add and glue the strips together, yeah, as long as you go alternating. So in other words, if I wanted to glue this together, and I know this is black, this piece is black, I want to break this off where a white piece is.
Yeah.
And then I want to attach at the white,
Yeah.
see, like this.
Right.
So that's white, I want to attach. Because it's so small, when you stick it together, you will never see the joint of the purfling line, never. So theoretically, you could make just one little guy and cut them real small, and then just bend them around an inch at a time, you know,
Right.
just little sections, you know, like this,
Yeah.
and then just keep going. So they add
I'd
up.
rather not.
Yeah, I'd rather not either. Okay, so the last secret would be, once you create this mess here, and you got these long lengths, yeah, they actually look like this, yeah, and these are long lengths that I brought that have already been done, yeah, and this is actually the finished thickness that you kind of want to get, yeah, and you'll see that it's really this guy cut in half, you know, I mean, it's pretty much the same, yeah.
Yeah.
So this thickness is a really good thickness to have.
So I don't know if you can see these or not. So this is the width, or the height actually.
Height, yeah,
So this is your individual,
top.
yeah, binding.
So this would be a diagonal rope binding.
Yeah. So these, what is the thickness of these?
Those are a little less than an eighth, so 5/32.
5/32 inch, and the height
Height, I go 3/16.
3/16.
Yeah, so my finish square, in other words, this finished is 3/16
Yeah.
by 3/16. 3/16 by 3/16, which will account for the 2 layers of veneer. You know, so when you put your 2 layers of veneer, now it is officially 3/16.
Yeah.
You know, so actually it's a little less than 3/16. And then once you get this, again, you make a boatload, and then you're home free.
Yeah.
You're like this. So the thing that I wanted to show you is that you'd think, wow, you know, these rope bindings, they're all these little individual pieces diagonally glued together. You'd think they'd break off in sections at every joint, you know, but especially when bent under heat. But what I found...
Well, not just heat and moisture.
Heat and moisture, you know, exactly that. But what I found that it doesn't really happen if you do this. And actually, I recommend this for all binding except plastic, because plastic you don't have a problem with. You don't have to do this. But on normal binding, what I do is this. I take a bunch of binding. You need 4, yeah, for every ukulele, because a length side for a tenor is 18 inches. So you need 18, 4 pieces. Yeah, so what I usually do is I grab 4 pieces and I'll stick them together. Like, this is really long, yeah, because these were made for baritone and or, yeah. So what I do is I stick them like together like this, and I put them adjacent to each other.
Right.
And you can see the herringbone.
Yep.
So you know that I'll have a left, 2 lefts on the bottom, 2 rights on the top.
Yep.
So they'll go a different direction, yeah. And what I want to do is I'll put them together like this, very tightly, like this, and I'll wrap tape around it every 4
hold 'em,
inches.
yeah.
Tape, 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 every 4 inches,
Yep.
and I'll do 2 bundles of this.
And then for your
And
for
then,
bending.
remember now, it has a tendency to bend up because that's where the veneer is.
Right.
Yeah? But you're going to bend it the opposite way on your bender. So, but this fits the waist real good, yeah? So you just drop it in on your waist. I wrap it in parchment paper. I got my heat blanket underneath. I put my compression shield over the top. I always
Yeah.
use a compression shield. And I tighten down the waist. And then I go ahead and bend just like you would do normal wood, except it'll probably bend 3 times faster.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a small section. In fact, you can just go and it's almost bent. Okay, now the secret is this. You've bent 2 bundles, 1, 2, together. I leave it in there. Once I bend it, I'll let it heat for maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and then I'll turn off the power of the heat blanket. I'll wait 5 minutes. I'll plug it back in for another 2 minutes. I'll take the plug out, then I walk away. I never have loosened the cauls. So it's in the shape of whatever ukulele shape you have. And I just leave it there. The next morning, when you open it up,
it doesn't spring at all then?
No, it'll be exact shape of your mold,
right.
of your call, of your bending machine.
Yeah.
Now you have only one problem.
Should we bring out this bending machine?
Yeah,
Just so
actually it'll look perfect with your bending machine.
it's kind of dirty. I told you I'm doing renovations in my,
Yeah,
my shop. So.
I know, I'm the same way. Let me get this out of the way. Okay, great. We can just shove this on the side. So again, I use exactly the same setup that Doug's machine has. So the blanket would be on just like this, and it's preheated. And then my little strips would be taped up, and remember they go purfling down, which means the veneer down.
Yeah.
And see, they fit kind of nice right, where they want to go, and you'd have 2 bundles of them.
Right.
I would put the
Then put the
compression
shield
shield right over it like that, and I'd go ahead
and then
bend.
start. Yeah.
From the waist, the big bout, and then the small bout.
Yeah.
Pow. Sprinkle with water, parchment paper on top. Okay, the next day, you open this puppy up, and like I say, it'll be the exact shape of a ukulele. You're so happy. It's bent so well, there's no spring back. The only problem is when you take off your 4 tapes very gently, and you open your bundle like that, it does not separate. It's stuck together because you tape tight like this, and then the glue and the heat has seeped from one edge to another, so they're stuck. So you'll have to slowly put your thing down like this, and I use a single edge razor blade, and I just slowly stick the blade into the middle of the both, and I slowly cut it. It's not even cutting, it just separates the glue. It goes pop, it'll pop, it'll pop, it'll pop, it'll pop as you're going, and this will release.
Oh, okay.
Then you end up with 4 pieces the same shape of your ukulele. A definite left bottom, a definite right bottom, left top, right top. So now when you set your router to this thickness and you adjust the depth, once you route that groove, this will fit in almost perfectly.
Yeah.
And you can just glue and use masking tape, it'll hold. It'll hold so well that it's kind of shocking. It's like you're kind of cheating. It looks really hard, but it really isn't.
Yeah.
So that part is really wonderful.
Well, the next critical thing is to make sure your routes are right.
Your route has to be really
perfect,
clean,
yeah.
very clean. You don't want to route too shallow where this sticks out, because now you affect the thickness if you sand it down.
Yeah.
And you want to route where it's perfectly even, or choto proud, a hair.
Yeah.
So you can just sand really easy and get it clean. The other secret is, actually it's a secret I've used forever, is that the best way is when you cut your binding, let's use this as an exaggeration, but say this is your ukulele side, and
Yeah.
I just route it in, and this is going to be my big old binding,
Yeah.
like this, Okay, so what I do is I get a small bracing stock material, rectangle, maybe not even a 1/2 inch by a 1/2 inch, and I wrap it with 220, and I do this.
Yeah, I do that too.
Okay, so
Yeah,
you
to
clean that
up
channel,
the channel.
perfectly clean. Okay, now you take your edge on the purfling side, inside edge, and you cut the inside corner.
Oh, so it's
it
corners
can,
don't hold it up.
yeah, the
Yep.
corner can never bind because it's gone.
Yep.
You know, so if you just cut the little inside corner, you can't see it. It'll always adhere perfect. There won't be bumps or anything like that because there's nothing that's off holding it up, you know. So that's what you kind of want to do, and then you should have no problem.
You were worried about using up your whole hour.
And we did it
It's
then?
finished.
Okay, great.
So
Very
we've
good.
used up all of our time for today. I hope you enjoyed the demonstration. Thank you, Mike.
Okay, no problem.
You know,
yeah.
I always bring guests on that I can learn from. So I didn't fail again. You taught me a lot about rope binding. Thanks a lot for joining us for another edition of Ōlelo Workshop. Aloha.